Hello and welcome to another modelling video. This is Alan from the Makota Man at YouTube with another review build video. Today we'll be looking at the IBG Type 94 Imperial Japanese Tankette with trailer. This Polish company has done a few variants and releases of the same tank, slight turret or weapon modification and without the trailer. The addition of this extra item, which I have found source material in the image at the start of the video, seemed interesting enough to be added to my interwar period of light tanks. The boxed kit comes with 10 very small runners, some depicting quite fine parts, a fairly detailed decal sheet with a couple of schemes, photo etch parts, full colour guide involving a couple of manufacturers' codes of colours, and 3D rendered CAD instruction sheet, which fair enough was very easy to follow and quite spot on in placement of parts, numbering of bits on the runners and whatnot. Nicely streamlined, laid out, and fairly alright to build. The model was purchased on eBay straight from Poland, with a couple of kits combined shipped. Worked out to be a very fair price. Full retail is also pretty good with the amount of content you get in the box. Being a very recent release, it is pretty much showing the best of IBG at the moment. Among armour and some aircraft, other style of modelers do kind of look their nose down on the tankettes and smaller subjects. You do get quite a lot less parts or weight per plastic. You do, however, get far more finer parts and more separation that comes together with added extra bits and pieces and very unusual shapes due to the period where it's riveted armour. Straight into the build, and the first parts we're cutting off the runners is the tracks, the wheels, the running gear, the suspension. Everything is moulded into one part, which is absolutely amazing in cutting down time in assembly, removing nubs and maybe crooked assembly due to the frustration of the sheer size and getting it all together. Worse if you have rubber parts, but everything is also moulded into the side of the armour or the main hull. Clicks in together immediately, almost snap fits. There is quite a bit of flash around the tank tracks, which does take a little while to sand and get into each groove, though very much worthwhile to get out of the most mundane parts of just assembling all those wheels and running bits. It is a manufacturing trend that I have been enjoying for the past few years with newer manufacturers. It really does open the whole floodgates of more obscure interwar armour and building up a community and fandom of the subject. The seams are all located around each corner, and the surface area is chamfered to quite a deep degree where there's maximum contact for cement to be applied and stuck together. No real gaps. The fitting is absolutely spot on. Just clicks in together without holding it into place and supports itself and its own weight once cement is introduced into the mix. The detail is practically mostly raised without any gaps in the seams, being the very corners. Sanding isn't really required and you won't have any loss of detail that does appear. It picks out nicely during the painting process as well. A lot of armour flaps, hooks, external exhaust parts and whatnot are glued around the place, as well as the protectors above the tracks. They fit in fairly well. You start folding and applying the etch as you go on. Etch isn't too hard to deal with. The bit that is in a circular motion over the exhaust is easy to stretch out by bending it over the handle of a paintbrush. Then we move on to the turret, a circular bit. Everything glues together very nice. Quite a deep contact points to cement together. gun slaps in, and it all connects together quite smoothly. The process of the build of this main tank can occur in a single session. Experience, detail, proportion-wise, imperfections. Ideally, this is a rocking build. If you put enough attention into it or whatnot, can even be a competition piece. Definitely a full thumbs up from me in how it's standing right now due to its profile. The two trailers were a bit more of a challenge due to being extremely flimsy and tiny for its scale. Not much you can really do about that. Fantastic that the tracks also come in one piece. Being this size was time consuming to clean scrape the flash mark. The bottom part of both trailer is absolutely identical. The hooking coupling was so thin it snaps multiple times during the build and paint. Maybe ideal to change it into a different material such as brass wire or metal. The top bit, the open trailer, was very difficult to square and get right. Once squared up and glued, there wasn't any gaps and it looked pretty good. The full encompass covered container was a lot easier to build and looks absolutely awesome. These are all the leftover parts you get for the bits box. Not so generous, but that's okay. IBG really does spoil you for a coloured layout, colour scheme in getting the pattern right for the camouflage. You get all the angles with, without, trailer, underneath, top, all that sort of jazz, as well as the colours needed. Went straight to priming and having a look for imperfections with Tamiya lacquer grey primer and an undercoat of Guy-Note Eva oxidised red. The open top trailer was an absolute pain to airbrush, being so light, flimsy and catching pressure with its sides. It flipped over and flew off a few times from the airbrush application. Everything started off with an SMS yellow dusted on. Using blue tack, I was able to roll very, very thin sausages. Though looking at the finished result, I probably should have made them even more thinner and applied them in a wavy pattern similar to the reference material joining each other. Once it was sandwiched onto the surface with the tip of a toothpick, I was able to pinch the sides to make sure that paint would not bleed underneath. This served to be a very useful mask and achieve the result I was roughly after. Paint to use for the camouflage was the Mr. Color Imperial Japanese Army late war set. The yellow was not provided, though they're all roughly colour corrected to get the right tone. I normally do light modular shading. Being so small, it's just flat out straight colours, and the sides and underneath some areas were picked up with a little bit of clear smoke. Once the masks were removed and blotting extra blue tack throughout the surface a day or so after drying not to damage the paint, I was able to remove any tiny stuck trapped blue tack and was very happy with the finished result. The yellow does really stand out. To get added definition besides the clear smoke being sprayed to the sides, all the extra details such as tank tracks, tools, gun barrels and whatnot were painted in appropriate colours using either lacquers for metallics or Tamiya acrylics for solid colours. Further weathering methods were applied, a few different coats of washes either by SMS or Mr. Hobby to get the panels and sections separated, a weathering pencil to pick up corners and whatnot, and just a touch of pigment for definition. Within each weathering layer, a coat of clear was applied to seal or perform a job. Gloss coat for your washes and decals, which were the earlier processes. SMS matte, really great lacquer product, followed by the application of pigments and other methods, including a couple of extra layers of matte to lighten up the colour due to the darkness that the smoke produced. Quite a bit of pigment was also thrown into the open trailer to look like leftover dirt and earth stained the very bottom, and that it might have been moving around sand or battlefield debris, dirty objects, all that sort of jazz, maybe even muddy feet. The decal printing quality was very nice and sharp. They applied beautifully, no problems, quite strong, didn't tear or fold, yet they were very tiny. This is due to the size that these tanks are quite small. They're almost as tall as a person today, and you can only really see them when you're up close and personal with the tank, or really looking in as a scale model. They fulfilled the duty ideally. In the end, with all the weathering, the hand painting, and playing around with the weathering process to get dirt at the lower points, casting shadow and wear and tear on top, very happy with the process. There's a couple of things I could have done better, though generally I think there's a bit of an improvement in my armor modeling of late with every finished project. Not really rushing these anymore to just pump out content, and sort of taking a bit further for fun. I do really enjoy Imperial Japanese subjects, got a ton of models, and do want to build more of them at some stage and have the whole collection of types and whatnot. Resin, styrene, we'll slowly sort that out and want to at least attempt something this small, doing freehand soft edge camouflage out of an airbrush rather than masking. We'll see as we go. The general outcome with this kit, fairly happy. There is imperfections and whatnot, but can't complain at all. Recommendation to buy and have a go at this kit yourself? Definitely. If you're going to hand paint the camouflage, airbrush, whatnot, you'll enjoy it. The detail is chunky enough to take various different painting method, and it was a general joy to have in the collection. It feels like you're building 3 models, which at some points during painting it got tedious painting the same thing, though it is worthwhile, especially if you're into really obscure subjects. The trailer makes up for it. Thank you very much for watching. As always, until next time, stay tuned for further content. We post regularly. We've got social media links down below. We've got all sorts of goodies going on. Catch you guys next time.